Uncle Clarence. Once we have located the cemetery, the grave itself is not hard to find. One of a row of headstones, just inside the gate and backing onto a railway. Flanders in April, and it is, not inappropriately, raining, clogging our shoes the famous mud. The stone gives the date of his death, 21st of October 1917, but not his age. He was 20. He was always 20, all through my childhood, because of the photograph on the piano at my grandmother's house in Leeds. He was her only son. He sits in his uniform and puttees in Mr. Lonergan's studio down Woodsley Road. Lonergan's, a classy place that does you a good likeness. Less classy, but still doing a good likeness, Mr. Lonergan takes pictures of my brother and me in 1944, in the closing stages of the next war. An artiest study this. Two boys aged 12 and 9 emerged from a shadowy background to look unsmilingly at Mr. Lonergan under his cloth. My brother is in his Morley Grammar School blazer, his hand resting unself-consciously on my grey flannelled shoulder. In his picture, Uncle Clarence is on embarkation leave from the King's Royal Rifles. In 1944 we too are going away, though not to certain death, only down south to fulfil a dream of my father's. He has answered an advert in the Meat Trades Journal, and having worked 25 years for the Co-op, is now going to manage a family butcher's in Guildford. Uncle Clarence never comes back, but we are back within the year. His photograph still standing on the piano on its lace doily, and now ours has been put beside it. The piano itself does not belong to Grandma. She gives it house room at 7 Gilpin Place for her sister-in-law, Aunt Evelyn. Aunt Evelyn has never married and has beautiful handwriting. Her name is on all the music in the piano stool, and in a time she accompanied the silent films at the Electric Cinema, Bradford. Come the talkies, she turns housekeeper, and now looks after Mr. Wilson, sometime chairman of the Bradford Dyers Association, who is a widower with a fancy woman, whom Aunt Evelyn dislikes because she has dyed hair and is not Aunt Evelyn. On Sundays there are musical evenings in the front room at Gilpin Place. The children are warned to keep back, as a shovelful of burning coals from the kitchen range is carried smoking through the house to light the fire in the sitting room before we sit down to high tea in the kitchen. After tea, the sitting room still smelling of smoke, Aunt Evelyn arranges herself on the piano stool, and with my father on the violin, "Now then, Walter, what shall we give them?" kicks off with a selection from Glamorous Night. Then, having played themselves in, they accompany Uncle George, my father's brother, in some songs. Uncle George is a bricklayer, and has a fine voice, and a face as red as his bricks. He sings, "Bless this house, and where'er you walk," and sometimes Grandma has a little cry. These occasions go on until about 1950, when Grandma dies. Grandma, whose name is Mary Ann Peel, has 3 daughters, Kathleen, Lemira, and my mother Lillian. Clarence is the eldest child and the only son. Whenever he is talked of, it is always, "Ah, Clarence," or to my brother and me, "Your Uncle Clarence." But he is only our would-be uncle, an uncle who might have been, not like my father's brothers, uncles of flesh and blood, 2 of them veterans of the same war and very much alive. We are his nephews by prolepsis, and he our posthumous uncle, protected even in death by the convention that children do not refer to relatives by anything so naked as their name. When Uncle Clarence's name comes up, it is generally in connection with the undisputed nobility of his character. What is disputed is which of the sisters resembles him most. It is accepted in our wing of the family that this role belongs to my mother, who certainly looks most like him. The prettiest of the three, she marries early and does not get on with the other two, who marry late. Clarence, later to become a silly ass kind of name, a name out of farce, and like Albert never revamped, remains in our family the name of a saint. If my mother is asked about Uncle Clarence, the reply is always, "He was a love, and was a grand fellow." What job he did in the few years given to him to have a job, whether he had a dog or a bike or a girlfriend, none of this I know or bother to ask. And with both my aunties dead, there is no one now who does know. My mother lives, but she does not remember she had a brother, or even what a brother is. When asked, she still says, "He was a grand fellow." She says the same about my father. I am a grand fellow too. In these her flat, unmemoried days, she would probably say the same about Adolf Hitler. In the front room at Gilpin Place is an elaborate dresser, with mirrors and alcoves and fretwork shelves. Stripped of its warm chestnut varnish, it will have gone up in the world now, moved from Leeds 12 to Leeds 16, to grace the modish kitchen of a polytechnic lecturer or a designer at Yorkshire TV. In my time this dresser is laden with ornaments housing Grandma's hoard of silver paper, and the drawers are stuffed with bundles of seaside postcards. Sunset across the bay, Morecambe. The illuminations, Blackpool. The bandstand, Lytham St Anne's. Glossy decal-edged cards in rich purples and browns. To my brother and me, who have never seen fairy lights along the prom, or the sands without tank traps and barbed wire, they are what the world was like before the war. We take the cards and steam off any Edward VII or George V stamps, to use as pretty mediocre swaps. Among the picture postcards are photographs on stiffer card. Grandma on outings with a ladies' bowling club, striding along some promenade in a long laughing line, big ladies in cloche hats, and black duster coats on trips to Bangor or Dunoon. The cupboard in the dresser has more mysterious artefacts. Old scent sprays, cigar cutters, some candle snuffers, and a pile of 10-inch 78s in torn brown paper covers. One is, "I lift up my finger and I say tweet tweet, hush hush, now now, come come." I find some needles in the cupboard and play it on the wind-up gramophone in its red Rexine cover. In theory, the dresser is out of bounds, and I can only look in it if my brother is out playing with his pals or swimming at Armley Baths, and Grandma and I are alone in the house. This is generally on a Saturday afternoon. She dozes in front of the kitchen fire, while I investigate the cupboard in the front room. Rooting, she calls it. From time to time she wakes up. "What are you doing in there?" I say nothing. "Are you rooting?" "Give over." In the first year of the war there is a tin of biscuits in the dresser. The biscuits have long since gone, but the legend of them remains, and I always think if I can get to the very back of the cupboard, there'll be another tin that has been forgotten. There are plenty of other tins. When I ask what's in them, my grandmother always gives the same answer: chums. It's a joke which never fails to amuse her. But before I know that chums are friends, they are something mysterious, sweet and secret, that one should not look for because forbidden.